Welcome back to Career Mapping with Mal and Mel. Today, we are going to be speaking about personal branding and optimizing your social media. These are two of my favorite topics. If anyone knows me, I am very big on social media. I have been big on social media since I was very young, probably too young. And I thought I was going to go into social media marketing when I first graduated college because I thought that if you like social media, of course I'd be good at it, not realizing how much goes into social media on the back end with data and everything else. But I'm very excited that we can share with you just a few of our tips on those topics because I truly believe, I know Mel does too, that these can be game changers for you, whether it's in your job search or just throughout your career. So, Mel, do you want to share us your first tip?
Yeah, so my first tip is about LinkedIn. I am a huge fan of LinkedIn, but it's only been in the past few months that I've gotten on that sort of bandwagon. For years, I'd been on LinkedIn, never really used it. I would post if I got a new job. Sometimes I would repost my boss's content, but never really felt like I had any interest or need for LinkedIn. And I think that's a common thing. People don't realize that they need something until they need it, right? And so some things happened when I was building the elevation course. Initially, it was around like word of mouth, and I decided, okay, I need to like build this personal brand. That's a whole other story, but decided that I need to get serious about putting myself out there on LinkedIn. And if I really believe in what I'm offering the world, I've got to be a little bit louder about it, right? And it goes the same for people who are seeking jobs. If you really believe in yourself, then be like share yourself with the world, right? And that's so important. So the other kind of part about why LinkedIn is so important is that we can't just rely on resumes anymore. The reality is, and this is it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? But people should be, and they are using AI to optimize their resumes. So guess what? All of the resumes sound alike. Maybe there's a few different like numbers and facts and statistics that you put in yours, but all of the resumes sound alike. Imagine that you are the recruiter, you're the hiring manager. You're reading through hundreds of resumes that all sound alike, right? How do you know the difference? You can't read someone's personality through a resume, right? Now, LinkedIn, on the other hand, you can go there, you can click on their LinkedIn page, and I promise you they're doing this. I've spoken to hiring managers. This is what they're doing. Come on, you apply on LinkedIn and they're looking at you on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
It's a two-way street. So they go to your page, maybe they see nothing. Okay, that's fine. But maybe you've optimized your LinkedIn. And so they see your personality, they see your thought processes, they see how you interact with the world, sort of those little intangibles that might make a difference and might push your resume over the edge of someone else's, right? And so it's these little things that can make a huge difference in your job search. And it's little things you can do, right? And I'll go into the tactical stuff you can do in my next tip. But as far as using this like LinkedIn, it's always visible, right? So there's sometimes people are looking for a chief of staff. They're looking for an EA, but they don't want to put it out yet. They don't want to put out an open job rec, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of applicants they have to wade through. So they're often privately looking. They're reaching out to people like me and Mallory. They're asking around and they're checking out people's LinkedIn profiles. So your resume, yeah, that's good when you need to apply for a job. But what about these opportunities where people are, searching? So I can't stress this enough. Use LinkedIn. You're going to start getting inbound interest. That was a game changer for me when I finally got on the LinkedIn bandwagon a few months ago and was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to post every day. I'm going to do all the little things, um, which I'll talk about in my next tip. But I got so much inbound interest, and that has happened over and over for my students, for my clients. When you start putting yourself out there, people see, oh, okay, you're more than just an admin. You're more than just a piece of
Love it.
paper. You're a real person on the other end of that. And that excites them, and they want to learn more, and they want to get to know you and want to reach out to you for next steps.
hmm I think that's something that you touch upon that's really important is LinkedIn is really just an extended resume. And so many people get stressed out about what do they put on a 1-page or 2-page or resume. But your LinkedIn, it's unlimited. Like, you could put whatever you want. You could put pictures to show like exactly what you did. Maybe you hosted a really nice event and there were hundreds of people there and you have a nice shot from there. Like, you can post that on LinkedIn. And there's just so many things that you can do that a resume can't. And so if someone does see your resume but they want to learn more, I always say your LinkedIn should paint the picture and show your personality through how you like represents your resume's personality. And so I think that it is so important to use LinkedIn. I mean, you can use other channels too, but definitely starting with LinkedIn, if anything. And this kind of goes into very easily into my first tip, which is be a contributor, not just a consumer. And I remember I used to have a friend that she used to tell me, yeah, I like love to just be a ghost on social media. Like, I don't post anything, but like I'm looking at everyone else's stuff. And like that's okay, maybe if you're on Instagram or anything else. But on LinkedIn, I really, really believe that you should be a contributor. And just like Mel said, for me, I have gotten so many opportunities where I wasn't even looking for them that I've had to either turn down or in like the speaking world through just posting on LinkedIn, because people resonate with whether you're sharing your story, your skill set, like they people are interested, we all know. And people also just respect the confidence to be able to put yourself out there because, like, let's be real, it is sometimes like scary. You don't know if someone's going to comment something crazy under your post. You don't know what is going to happen once you put something out there. And so I think that that's just something that's really important, is to be a contributor. I am someone, kind of Mel mentioned, that people will look you up on LinkedIn. Anytime someone applied when I was at Google or Henry Schein, the first thing I did was look on LinkedIn. And I wanted to see, again, are they a contributor? Anytime someone reaches out to me for job help, the first thing that I do is look at their LinkedIn and specifically go to their comments and their posts to see, are they a contributor? Have they tried to help other people on their journey or give something to the platform instead of just taking from it? And I really believe that something that if someone comes to me for help, I always tell them, if you can do two things I really care about. One is, well, I don't tell them that I usually look for a thank you. I usually like to see if when someone has implemented, that's it. I usually ask for, I look to see if someone says thank you. I don't tell them that. Second thing is, did they actually implement something that I with my advice? And the third thing is, I always see if they will give back to someone else. Sometimes they don't have to share that with me, but I look to see whether it's on LinkedIn or if they tell me along the way if they've helped someone else for free. I usually always look, and a LinkedIn is really a good way to just see, like, is this person, again, being a contributor, giving as much as they're asking. And being a contributor, you never know what is going to happen. Like, again, let's just go beyond even the job search. Like, there's been so many ways that social media has helped me. Like, I went to Nashville a couple weeks ago and I had met someone through LinkedIn who said to me, I would love to host you if you're ever in Nashville. And I said to her, I will take you up on this. So don't offer something if you actually don't mean it with me, because if anyone knows, I will get in my car or I will get on a plane and I will take that offer up. So I called her and I was like, hey, I'm going to come to Nashville like tomorrow. And I didn't ask her at first, like, can I stay with you? And then she's like, where are you staying? I'm like, I don't know yet. She's like, stay with me. And that was literally all because of LinkedIn. And let me just say, it was the best thing ever. Her place was like a wellness resort. I was like, I want to live here now. But it was amazing. I met my boyfriend off of Twitter, for people that don't know. Like, he had seen that I had posted, well, it's a longer story, but how he reached out to me, which is literally nearly a year ago. He listened to my podcast about leaving Google. And that was a career thing about what I was going to do next, and he listened to it and it resonated with him and he reached out to me. So you just never know. Like, don't always, I know this is about career and job search, but also just think about it is like, you don't know what is going to come up of it. Like, it might start off as something that's career, but there's so many beautiful stories that I have personally. I'm sure, Mel, you have some kind of story about social media. Like, it will be beyond that if you make it that. Um, and even the last thing I'll say is, I mentioned this in another video where for Spotify, I saw that they had on their own on their own website, posted about needing an EA for their VP of growth and marketing. what I did was I looked on LinkedIn to see who is their VP of growth and marketing. Then I actually reached out to that person on Twitter because I contribute a lot to Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And he got back to me and was like, oh, yeah, send me your resume and cover letter. And then I actually became the finalist that way. So, and I'm sure that he went through at least the first page of all the tweets that I had. So I think that if you just remember, be a contributor, have the confidence to know like you have a voice. And again, I just always say to admins, if you want to get paid $100,000 or more, you need to be able to do these things. These are not like speaking in front of 10,000 people. This is not like putting your whole career on it. You do not have to write all of these long, vulnerable posts. Like it really can be that you're even just reposting what your company does, or your current company has, or what your leader is doing. Like as a chief of staff and as an EA, like I feel as though sometimes our job is just to help elevate like our own leaders' brand themselves. So, and that's, wait, I gotta go on one more soapbox and I will stop and let you speak, Mel. Is so many times I hear admins talk about like, oh, this person is building their personal brand and they just care about their brand. And let me tell you something. Our job is to help our executives with their personal and professional brand. It is okay to have a brand as an admin. Personal brand has become kind of a weird buzzword that it seems like grimy if you want to have a personal brand, but it really does not have to be that way. And even like myself, like, I mean, the honest truth is I wish that I could be in the woods with off the grid and have no access to any electronics. But in today's age, you just can't do that as much as we want, as much as I want to. And I just want people to know like it is okay to build a personal brand. We help our executives do this all the time. And just remember that whether you see someone else doing it or you are like, I don't know if I want to do this, I don't want to come across as someone that's just like here to make money or here to climb the corporate ladder. Like it doesn't have to be that way. So what is your next tip, Mel? Or I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you. The personal brand thing, for years, I was like, this is cringy. I'm not doing this. I don't want to be an influencer or a thought leader or, whatever the things. I had all of those doubts, those hesitations. I had all of the negative thoughts around being on social media. Even personally, I wasn't on social media that much. I just thought, all the negative things you could think about it, I believed them. But there was this quote, and I think I referenced it earlier, and it does apply. It's more about selling a product or a service, but when you're in the job search, you are selling yourself. Like you said, you're trying to get 100K plus. Okay, if you're a chief of staff, an EA on a senior level, like you're trying to get someone to pay you six figures. You have to sell yourself in order for them to pay that amount, right? And so the quote was, and I'll make sure we get it exactly right and can drop it in the comments. But it was around, if you truly believe that your product or service can make a difference in someone's life, then it's your moral obligation to sell it. And so if you really believe that you can work for that executive, make their life easier, if you can work for that company and help them get to the next level, if you truly believe that, then you have a moral obligation to put yourself out there. And so you can get that job, right? So sitting back and being like, oh, LinkedIn is cringy, like posting is cringy. And then someone else gets that job and they do a worse job at it than you. What good was that, right? So again, I think we're standing on the same soapbox. Hopefully everyone is on board with us around, yes, let's start optimizing our social media, right? So that being the case, my second tip is all about the tactical. How do you do that? Right? Because it's one thing we can tell you that you need to do it and here's why you need to do it. But I want to get into the tactical because this is something I learned. I have to shout out Toby Oluwole, amazing LinkedIn person, human. And I actually joined his course when I decided that, okay, I need to get on LinkedIn, like doing the word of mouth is sort of effective, but it's not really getting through. And I know there's so many more people that I can impact, but I need to, put myself out there. So I joined his course. I learned so many incredible things. I'll try as much as I can to share them. I know we don't have forever. This was like an 8-week course. But some of the biggest things that I can share that are super easy. One thing, Mal, you said, you don't have to post these long, vulnerable posts. You're 100% right. You don't, and you shouldn't, in fact. You want to keep things really readable and digestible. So if you do go look on my page, you'll see that like the paragraphs are maybe 2 sentences long at the most. Otherwise, it's 1 or 2 sentences, you know, so it's easy to read. Because when you think about it from like your end, when you get to a post that has long, long paragraphs, you know, you're going to skim over. Our attention spans are slow or are short. And it's the same for people who might be in a position to hire you, to refer you, to give you a job recommendation. So do the posting. It doesn't need to be long. In fact, it should be short and concise to the point. I would recommend, I try to post every day. That's because my situation I'm in, I want to make sure I'm getting in front of people every day. For a job seeker, you can get away with posting, I would say 2 or 3 times a week even. And Mal, you might have a different opinion on that. But I think it's just important to have something consistent so people know that you're around. They know that like, okay, this person just posted 3 days ago. If I send them a message, they're probably going to respond. If you haven't posted anything since 2017, I probably think you're not on LinkedIn. I'm not going to reach out to you because you're probably not going to write me back. And so you want to have that consistent posting so people can see that you've recently been on in case they do want to reach out to you. And you also want to think about what I'm conveying what my potential employer wants to hear. And so I see sometimes people posting like negative things on LinkedIn about like, you know, how terrible like bosses are and different things. And like, yes, there are some things that definitely like need to change and we need to call out certain like ghosting in the interview process. Yes, let's call that out. But when you're like always complaining on LinkedIn or like every post you make is about like some new grievance or complaint you have, that like, what is that telling your future hiring manager? Again, like Mal mentioned, some of that might need to go on Twitter. Some of it might need to go on Instagram. Like, let's put that kind of stuff somewhere else if you feel like you need to get it out. But you need to be posting pretty regularly, pretty consistently. You need to have it like concise and to the point, and then you need to make it about what they want to hear, not just about what you want to share. You might want to share about, you know, and sometimes you can share personal things on LinkedIn. Sure, of course. You can share about your dog and your friends and, you know, all amazing things happening in your life. But as much as possible, make it, what does the person hiring you want to hear? So when they go to your page, they're seeing, okay, this is who this person is beyond their resume. And so that would be just the tactical piece of it. And again, I could go into a million long stories about this, but it's just post regularly, make it really like to the point, like get your point across pretty quickly, and then make it what your potential employer wants to hear.
Yes, I have a few responses to specifically things you said because my brain is buzzing. So the first thing is I think on cadence, I think even weekly is fine. I mean, again, I think 2 to 3 times a day, no, 2 to 3 times a week is like you should aim for that. But I even think like if you start with once a week for people who have never posted, that will be okay if it's thoughtful and it's good because again over like a month or something people will see at least like 4 posts of yours. I think also what people think is that they have to just do their own posts. I actually think something that's really equally as effective is if you post something thoughtful on someone else's post. Like a lot of times what I do is I comment on a lot of other people's posts and I often like if I like someone's comments and I usually add them. I refuse to get LinkedIn Premium. I know I'm that cheap. And so I only have so many messages I can send people. So but I want to connect with them. So usually I'll try to like their comment to be like, this is how I found you. And then I add them and then I'll message them sometimes after. But I think that if you just comment on other people's stuff, just to dip your toes into if you've never done this before. And then again, if you're like already posting consistently, I think that again, it's just about being like writing more engaging posts, learning, and I'll get into my tip in a little bit about what you should think about. But I think just starting off that way is the best thing. I think the other thing is we're talking a lot about LinkedIn. You could do a LinkedIn Live, but like there's other platforms like whether it's Twitter or Instagram where what you can also do is you want to be seen almost as like an industry expert, even if you're not necessarily one. And something that I did during the pandemic is I started an Instagram live series called Peace Over Panic during the pandemic, or like how we it was called Peace Over Panic. That was like how we all trying to find peace over panic during the pandemic. And it was my way of getting better at speaking. Like, because just like many of you, I still get anxiety about speaking. Like, I still am not like the most confident speaker. It is uncomfortable for me when I don't have notes in front of me on what to say. My mind goes a million miles a minute, and I have to really try to calm myself down and speak coherently. But what that Instagram live series did for me is, first of all, I knew hundreds of people were not going to listen to it, right? Like, I was not a big person on Instagram. I'm still not super big. But there would be, let's say, 5 family members, 3 friends. And what it did is it honestly just got me more comfortable on there, putting myself out there. And I think that sometimes, and what it did was it showed people during the pandemic, look, I'm trying to help people during the pandemic, how we trying to bring people together, trying to be positive during the pandemic. And I got a lot of people during that time where again, I became like friends through just this series. And because I would bring on different people, whether I knew them really well or not. And I think that sometimes you can start on your own Instagram or you can start on LinkedIn if, again, you want it to be more professional and get more people in your professional context is doing something live or bringing people on and asking them about their own experiences or even doing a post where you're like interviewing someone else. Like you could say, I just interviewed Mallory from More Than an Admin and she gave me this great advice. Here you go. Like it doesn't always have to be what you want to say. Just make sure you always cite everyone. Make sure you always credit if you're taking from anyone else's stuff. But I think that that's also a good way to just show people that you're kind of like an industry expert. The next thing is think about, again, if you are so negative about jobs, right? Let's go back to this dating scenarios. Do you want to date someone who all they do is talk about their exes badly? Usually any any forum will say if someone talks so negatively about their exes, it's a red flag. So let's remember that we don't want to be someone that's always being negative, whether it's LinkedIn or really anywhere else publicly so much. There's a difference between calling out injustice and being super negative, right? Like it is okay to call it injustice. It is okay to call out when you have real evidence and proof of something. I'm not saying don't necessarily do that. But if you are just complaining and being whiny, it just is, again, unfortunately, people will judge you, whether that's right or wrong. It's just the reality. And something that Halani Ellis said on one of the More Than an Admin podcast episodes is she said, if you have a negative experience or you want to like vent, use it in like private forums with like at the time, like this is for admins because she has an admin community as well. Like use it for that. Don't just post it where again, people that are trying to hire you are going to be the ones that's seeing it. Like choose private forums, like go to an admin conference or like something like that. Again, you should also be wary of how negative you're being because there's a way to again call something out where you're still being somewhat positive. Again, there's an art to that, but do it in a private sense or through one-on-ones, right? Like Mel and I, we call each other and there's sometimes that we're wronged and we will discuss it together instead of like blasting people on LinkedIn. And so that's just something to think about. My next tip is about learning the art of storytelling. This is a skill that I truly believe that if you can become even somewhat good at it, it can be a game changer, a huge game changer. I am not the best at this. I'm not saying that I am. I am in the process of really trying to be a better storyteller, especially through LinkedIn. But there, just like Mel said that she took a course, and I know that Toby, because I've taken some of his free webinars, he talks a lot about kind of like having a framework. So you want to make sure that people like it's easy to digest. It's not as like you're just word vomiting everything that you want in one post. Like sometimes you can break down posts into smaller ones. So I think that we need to really hone in on storytelling. So for me, with my LinkedIn summary that I'm actually redoing right now, is I'm trying to think about what makes me unique and what story do I want to take people from. How did I get from where I was when I was younger to building out More Than an Admin? And how did I get to many people know that my faith is a huge part of my story and it wasn't always. So I think a lot of times people are like, where did Mallory come in? And now all of a sudden she's like openly very Christian. I want to take people through that story. So I'm figuring out what am I going to do with that? So and I think that people, when you think about storytelling, you can start by just thinking about what are things that make you unique. So many people, unfortunately, think of themselves as boring and simple and like, oh, who cares if I like crocheting? But like, you can really make yourself, I mean, you are interesting. I always say every single person in this world is interesting. It's just about how you can build a story about who you are. This is something I always tell my boyfriend. At the end of the day, we always talk on the phone because we're long distance. And he will sometimes just say, yeah, my day was the same. I'm like, no, I want to hear the details. I want to know. And think about, again, what are some things that make you unique and how can you kind of take someone through this story of your journey. And I think that for me, I tell people study the goats, right? Study the greatest of all time at this. Watch TED Talks. Like that was how I started when I was super young, thinking about public speaking. As I used to watch a ton of TED Talks. Think about people that you love, whether it's on LinkedIn, Instagram, or are good on video. Like actually study them. That's what I do. Like if I watch an interview, I'm looking at it through a very different lens than I did when I was 15 or 20. I'm really studying like how do they ask the questions? How do they close their podcast? How do they open it? What just the staging of is it virtual? Is it in person? And I think that for story, think about what are the greatest stories you've ever told and who are very good at storytelling and why is it that they are good? And again, look at people like Mel have amazing frameworks that she uses on her LinkedIn. And there's many other people who do the same exact thing. And you might not like, let's say you might not post the same exact, let's not copy people, but you might see something that like I post or that Mel posts that's like 3 reasons why you should be an EA or chief of staff. Well, if you might do 3 reasons why I love being an EA or chief of staff so that you can do your own take on it. But again, it's still kind of the same framework. And, but you're still not, again, word for word copying anything. So I think that just remember that storytelling is very important. Um, really study people who are good at stories and think about what is your story. I always say that I want, when I look at the end of my life, to be the greatest movie that I ever watched. And so I really think that you just think about it like that. Think about your life as a movie and think about some critical points and how you can share those stories that help other people on their job search, just like we're doing, right? Through whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, any platform online. And I think that you'll see a lot of people who will be impressed that with your ability to do that. And again, people love stories, so they will always like. I just saw someone who I actually, because of the story that she posted on LinkedIn, asked to come on my podcast. And it was essentially like she had gotten into a accident of some sort, and then she got into kickboxing, and she gave back to her local church. And then she was talking about how the place that she was teaching these kickboxing classes shut down. And I like messaged her and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like an amazing story. And like, I would love to have you on the podcast. So anyway, that's
And
my tip is storytelling.
yeah, and the power of storytelling, Mal, is that I know exactly the post that you're referring to. I saw that person post that on LinkedIn too, and they're not like some massive influencer, but I saw that post and that story resonated with me, and it pulled at my heartstrings, and it's something I remember. And so by her posting that story, now she's going to be on your podcast. Who knows what could happen? Ripple effects from being on your podcast. And now I remember the story too, and maybe I'll go reference it at some point, or
Mhm.
you just
And it
never
was
know.
vulnerable. Like,
Yeah.
it was a vulnerable post, and it wasn't, like, this happy-go-lucky, like, post in the sense of, like there had a lot of emotions in that, but it was not negative. Like, I didn't look at that post and be like, "This person is just complaining because their kickboxing, studio or whatever got shut down." It wasn't like that, and I think that that's where, again, you need to study how people are doing this and look at, like, the comments under people's posts to see what resonates, because like you said, like, we both now know this person's story. I'm bringing her on the podcast, and I'm sure now many of you that are listening are going to probably listen to that episode at some point.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like you're spot on about storytelling. It is so powerful. If she was just like, hey guys, my kickboxing studio got shut down. Let me know if there's whatever. Like
Mhm.
it wouldn't have been as compelling, right? So you're right. Study those people that can convey messages in a way that interests other people. And then I did just want to say, because for some of us, the idyllic storytelling might not resonate as much. But if you think about like in business terms, your unique value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just what kept coming to me as you were sharing your tip was you have a unique value proposition. The same as the product or the service that your company is selling, you have a unique value proposition. And so make sure that you're conveying that, because guess what? The job market, it's tough. We all know that. There's hundreds of other people applying for that chief of staff role that you just applied for. There's hundreds of other people applying for that EA role you just applied for. How do you set yourself apart? What makes you unique? What is the unique value that you bring? And so including things like that. So even for instance, in that story that we're talking about, the woman with the kickboxing thing, there are other little tidbits that were picked up that if I were looking to hire someone, she would stand out, offering
Mm-hmm.
things, to help others, being optimistic, even in the face of really like tragic things that had happened, looking for the silver lining, picking up on those things, that is a unique value add for that person, right? And so all the time when you're posting, don't just think, and that's why it's copying and pasting and just like regurgitating information is never good. Think about how you can sprinkle in your unique value.
Yes, I think that that is super, super, super important. And I know that for me, when we talk about cover letters, I'm going to go back to that unique value proposition because it is super important to know what makes you unique. And the honest truth is that it makes me sad when some people don't see themselves as unique because we all are. And I think that sometimes also people think that being a general, like being known as not sharing certain details is going to maybe limit the jobs that you get. But I really believe that it will attract the right jobs and the right people will find you. Again, it's just like you don't want every single person to be interested in you dating wise. Like you want the right person to be interested. And you have to think about what details are super important. Like something that I'm open about is like, I love puzzles, I love I love memoirs. Like, yeah, there might be people out there that are like, this does not resonate with me, but I can tell you from the messages that I get that there are certain people who are like, this resonates with me a lot. And I think that you have to find out, again, really list out what are the things that make you unique. Like after you listen to this, I hope that you take some time and write out everything that makes you unique that you can think about and think about how you can again put this into a little bit of a story to see how others will feel. And again, you could do all these like micro posts, like maybe you talk about puzzles and how that's helped you as an EA or a chief of staff in a greater picture. Like there's a lot of things that you can do to make it professional, but also add some little personal tidbits to it too.
Yeah. And Mel, as you're saying that, what if we start having homework assignments in these series where
Mm.
we can leave everyone with, here's an assignment. You can let us know in the comments or DM us, let us know how it worked out for you. But yeah, I think if you want to give everyone their homework assignment for this episode of the series.
Yeah, we're going to put it in the description so that everyone can remember too. Is I think, how about you write out like 5 to 10 like unique values of yourself or unique, honestly, fun facts too. Like sometimes it's cool just to like see, like, oh, wow, this person like climbs Mount Kilimanjaro. Like, again, that shows a lot of like skills to be able to do something like that that people can take into the work world. So write out like 5 to 10 unique things about yourself and if you want, reach out to Mel or I, and I'm sure that we can kind of help you figure out like how you can kind of craft some of these random things into a story. And I'm sure just by speaking to us, we'll share some of our story and see if it resonates with you on how we kind of have crafted our own. And you'll see, like, look, Mel and I are just figuring out like what we're doing with this series still too. Like, you can change things up along the way. That's why it's really important that you add your own thoughts into the comments. You let us know what you would want more of, what you want less of, what is resonating with you, what's not. Make sure you share it with other people because we'd love as many people's perspectives as possible. Sure you subscribe to the More Than an Admin channel. I know Mel has her own chief of staff show that's also going to be in the description. And let's just help each other become better. Anything else, Mel?
Nope. Excited to hear more about everyone's unique value propositions.
Yes, and hopefully to see more and more people posting on LinkedIn or across social media to help them, whether it's land a job, getting a speaking engagement, one day get inbound clients, whatever it is. We hope that these tips have helped you.